everyone, Tyler here, back with my thoughts on this past week in the WNBA, and the semifinals are off, and we have two very interesting series on our hands, and I just want to give my general thoughts on both of them. Let's start off with the Liberty and the Aces. The Liberty right now look incredible. What they have been able to do, especially, there's several aspects that go into it, but I think a big part of it is putting Leonie Phoebus into the starting lineup for Courtney Vandersloot, and the problems that has been able to cause, whether she's knocking down shots, which we saw a little bit more of earlier in the playoffs, or even like in Game 2, where she just forces 2 early fouls from Kelsey Plum. It's been major. And what the Liberty have been able to do with adjusting and figuring out different ways to win has been incredible. And obviously they have the talent. So it's always, that has never been the problem, is having the talent. But the talent has taken steps up, and no more than Sabrina Ionescu. I mean, what she's been able to do, that Game 2 was, to me, I think it's not hard to see how she's improved this season. I think the most notable part of her game improving is the ability to get downhill and get to the rim and drive. That's been the most obvious improvement. But that fourth quarter in Game 2, I want to say, starting with about 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter or so, and the way that she just had such an impact, and her thumbprint was all over the conclusion of that game, was massive. And to me, that felt like the moment where there was a moment in the fourth quarter where I just sat back and I was like, oh, Sabrina is here. The improvement has been there. The stats have been there. But when it comes to, she decided that the Liberty weren't going to lose that game. And I don't know how many times we've seen that throughout her WNBA career so far. I think another big aspect of that Game 2 win was the Aces decided to force Stewie to be a facilitator, and she did that, racking up assists. It wasn't the best shooting night for Stewie, but still just being able to have an impact. And just to see the flexibility and success now match the talent that we've seen from Liberty. It's obviously, they made the finals last year, so it's not like they didn't see success, but this feels like the Liberty team that we were promised. And it just took that extra year to get here, and just adding a couple more pieces and fitting them in the right spots and whatnot. But even like the bench, like Kayla Thornton was fantastic. Courtney Vandersloot off the bench came in and had an immediate impact. Just being able to see how this team has rounded themselves out has been phenomenal, and they are playing some of their best basketball at the best time. And they've caused a lot of problems for the Aces, but ultimately the Aces just have problems of their own that don't need causation. The rim protection has been poor, and I think a lot of that starts with the perimeter defense and just allowing people to get head starts and not really offering much resistance in that sense. I think they've asked A'ja Wilson to do so much, and because of that, she's been stretched thin, and she's not having a huge impact on either side of the ball. She's been solid. The stats have been great for any other player, but A'ja Wilson has just set the bar so high for herself. And the bar that the Aces need her to hit for them to be successful in a playoff series against a team like New York is so incredibly high, because that's what they've been asking her to do the entire season. And I don't know if it's just asking too much at this point, just from a long term, like we've been asking her to do this all season, but the energy and the impact that can be felt, you can feel when A'ja Wilson takes over a game, and at no point during Game 1 or 2 has it felt like there's been a takeover. And even like she'll make a bucket, and normally she's amped up and gassed up and yelling, and we've seen that a couple times, but it almost just feels like exasperated almost, as opposed to like true hype and true, like, I'm about to take this game over. So I'm gonna be looking for that in Game 3. And it's certainly not, I don't think this is A'ja Wilson's fault by any means. We just, all around, the Aces have just taken a step back. I mean, it's just the simplest way to put it when it comes to building upon the past 2 years and trying to fulfill the dynasty, this kind of prophecy that they have kind of set out on. It just hasn't happened. And I think that they win Game 3. I could absolutely see that. I think just backs against the wall. Like I'm interested in seeing if the switch flips to a little bit more of the mentality that we had seen. Because even Becky Hammon in her post-game comments were telling about how she feels the mindset of this team currently is. And now your back's against the wall. You're down 2-0. Liberty just need one more game. If I was to guess, I'd say that the Aces win Game 3 and lose Game 4. And Liberty move on to the WNBA Finals and do it on Vegas' home court. Not too dissimilar to what the Aces did last year. But I'm intrigued because even when there was past struggles earlier in the season with the Aces, they never felt disconnected, I'd say. But this Game 2, and especially with Becky Hammon's post-game press conference, the Aces felt disconnected. And I truly think like a lot of them winning the championship and being able to overcome the injuries that they faced last year had a lot to do with the connection with this team. And right now you're not feeling that. And I think that's a huge point to make because your back's against the wall. You are one loss away from your season being over. And I'll be interested to see how they respond. If I was to bet, I think Asia Wilson leaves it all on the line. And I think that's good enough for at least one win in this series. 3 wins in a row, that's tough. That's a tough one. But to switch over to the other series as well, because it's been a phenomenal one in its own way. The Sun and the Lynx are tied 1-1. Game 2, what the Lynx were able to do was just kind of get back to some of their habits. They remembered how to make a 3-pointer, which is huge. And that's the thing for me with Minnesota is and why I've had so much confidence in them is that their championship habits are so good. And that even when they get knocked down or kind of knocked off pace, you're still able to get back to a lot of those habits. And Minnesota, like that Game 1 was weird in the sense of you're not like if you had told me that one team was going to lead in 3-point shooting and assists, I certainly wouldn't have picked the Sun for Game 1. But that's what happened. And seeing them get away from those habits, and I really think it's more so Connecticut forcing them out of them with just the aggressive defense and really playing in the passing lanes and things of that nature, it just kind of knocked everything off rhythm. And now Minnesota has Game 2, and there's certainly still a dogfight. Like they were in the mud, like battling it out. It was not easy, but you saw much more of normalcy that we have come to know, especially over the past month or so from the Minnesota Lynx. And moving the ball, rotating on defense, making threes, like that is what the Minnesota Lynx do. But man, this series, it was a 7-point win, and that was the largest margin of the season between these two teams. Like it has been such a tightly contested series throughout the entirety of this season, and now into the playoffs, and you really shouldn't expect anything different. I think this goes 5. I think the Lynx win in 5. But I 100% expect the Sun to now adjust in a different way. Like you have two of the best coaches in the entire WNBA. The Minnesota Lynx have so much depth to work with as well. The Sun have some, especially getting Ty Harris back. That certainly helps, but not as much as the Lynx. I think the Liberty and the Lynx probably have the two deepest teams in the league. But figuring out how these pieces rotate and everything's going to be super interesting in Game 3 and forward into this series, especially because the Sun held Nafisa Collier to under double-digit points. Like, that is insane. And she was still certainly able to impact on the defensive end and moving the ball and still was important in this win. But if you're a Sun fan, you feel brutal about not being able to pick up that win. So that's something that's going to be very interesting to see. Just I don't think that Fee was doing anything out of character. I just don't think she made a lot of shots. There was certainly a heavy dosage of fadeaways, but I don't think there was anything like too crazy. I just don't think she was hitting shots, and I'm not banking on that happening too many more times. I saw the Lynx in 5. I have Liberty in 4. But these next couple of games, as we decide this series and who's going to go into the WNBA Finals, is going to be so fun. It's going to be very tightly contested, and there's a lot of room for people to make statements. And I'm looking at the Aces and the Sun as well. Like, the Sun now have home court advantage technically. The next 2 games at home, they could close it out. And the Sun have always been the bridesmaid, never the bride. But right now, with Marina Mabrey doing what she's doing, she didn't have a great of a game in game 2 as she's had so far in the playoffs, but the threat that poses for the Lynx is so incredibly huge. And if Marina Mabrey can continue firing, it just makes life so much harder for Minnesota. So that's going to be just the kind of, I guess, player to watch of sorts for this game too, is can Marina Mabrey add the variable and cause the Lynx to really truly worry about the perimeter scoring from the Sun. So that's going to be very interesting to watch. I can't wait to see these games. Let me know who you think are going to win these series down below, and I'll see you next time.